So a few weeks ago, I was actually invited to be a guest on the Tube Talk podcast. My internet friend Viper asked me to be a guest on the podcast, and I'm still questioning as to how that happened, other than, I don't know, the man drinks a lot of Starbucks, but I'm very grateful that I was invited on, and I got to talk about what I love to talk about the most, which is our relationship to social media and the internet, particularly creators' relationships to social media and the internet. And one of the questions Viper asked me was, what brought me to YouTube? And when I was listening back to the episode once it was published, I realized when Viper asked me a particular question that maybe he wasn't asking what I thought he was asking, but I think I gave a pretty decent response, all things considering. I was also really nervous because I don't do that a lot. I don't get interviewed like ever. I was asked what brought me to YouTube, and I started responding by talking about being a fan of creators on YouTube. My initial relationship with the platform began back when I was in high school. This was during the first couple of years of the Vlogbrothers channel, if that helps date it at all. So we're talking, circa 2009 through my senior year, so through 2012. Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. I also watched Jenna Marbles. I, watched a handful of creators, but this was also a time on YouTube where the goal was videos to be 4 minutes and under. There was no long form content on the platform, or at least that was not the advice given to be successful. Then a few years later, in my early 20s, I was reintroduced to YouTube. I started watching the creators I had watched in high school, but then I started watching other creators that I was aware of but never watched before. So that would be, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye. So as the years went on, YouTube videos became longer and my personal preference for the length of a YouTube video also became longer. I think you can qualify the type of content I enjoy the most as either really long Let's Plays of video games, like I watched all of the Dead Space remake, but also video essays. I think video essays are some of my favorite category of content on YouTube. And one of the channels that I've come across over the past few years, and I'm sure a lot of other people are aware of this channel, it is Defunctland. Also, if you are not familiar with Defunctland or Kevin Perjurer, that's okay. The internet is vast. We can't expect all of us to know all the things all at the same time. So don't feel left out if you, for whatever reason, just haven't heard of the channel or you haven't watched any of that content. I think one of the repeat topics that Defunctland as a channel has covered is Disney, not only as a company, not only the parks, but also the media behind Disney and the Disney Channel specifically. As of this recording, the most recent video on Defunctland's channel is about the Disney Channel theme song and the mystery behind who wrote it. Currently, the video, I believe, has over 4.4 million views, and that was uploaded in November of 2022. Currently, it is May 1st, 2023, as far as just giving you a timeline of where things are, a little timestamp. I do have a tendency when I'm like journaling or writing or making notes to not only put the day of the week, the day on the calendar, but also the time. I don't know why I document in that way, but that's a personal thing for me. And I think that's why I included a lot of that information. But anyway, I think a lot of people enjoy Defunctland's videos because of the nostalgia factor. I wouldn't say nostalgia is a trend necessarily, more so it is a popular topic that to me makes sense why it's being used as kind of fodder or inspiration for the content and the body of work of many creators right now. I think for nostalgia, it is a place of comfort, but also mystery because there are gaps within the generations who are covering that either as a subject matter or as an aesthetic, a topic for another time, and also a topic that other people have covered a lot better than I will probably do right now. And I don't want to give anything away in Kevin's video about finding or trying to find out the identity of who wrote the Disney Channel theme song, the 4-note mnemonic, that if you hear it, you know exactly what it is. I don't want to give any of that away because it's worth it. It's worth the watch for many reasons, but there is something within Kevin's video that I think is really important and something I really want to talk about with you guys. So at about an hour into, Kevin's investigation, within the context of the video, he starts writing out a email to someone, again, kind of following up on a lead about the identity of this composer. And on the screen, we see him start to introduce himself as a documentarian before he retypes it to say he's a YouTuber. A few moments later, we see him opening a box of mementos, childhood mementos, old Disney VHSs, souvenirs, the like. But then he comes across a piece of paper that looks like something a child would be sent home with from school. It's a little worksheet, filling out what you want for your future self, or a letter to your future self, answering the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Kevin wrote, an artist. As the video starts making moves towards its final conclusion, Kevin interrupts his composition to insert an existential question he has for himself, but I think for other creators like him. In fact, I think it's better if we hear from Kevin himself.
I love what I do. I get to make videos for a living on subjects that I'm passionate about, that people watch. I am so lucky, and I am eternally grateful for every second that I am able to do this. But I'd be lying if there wasn't a small part of me that hates that this is called a video and not a documentary or a film, and that I am referred to as a YouTuber or a content creator and not a filmmaker or a documentarian or an artist. Because the truth is that I could do this, make videos on this platform every day until I die, and I would be happy every day. But that small part of me, that selfish, arrogant, pretentious, miserable part of me, would not be happy if that were my legacy when I'm gone. Because living my dream looks a lot different than I imagined as a kid, or even 10 years ago.
Kevin is conflicted and has a very negative feeling behind having to call what that video is as a video, and not being able, or feeling like he is able to call it what it actually is, a film. So in the spirit of not wanting to give it all away, and hopefully encouraging anyone who hasn't seen Kevin's documentary about the Disney Channel theme song to go and see it. But if you have seen it, you will still understand this part I'm about to talk about. Kevin goes on to connect the thread between his existential identity crisis in a way with the work and the topic at hand, which is, if he is to identify and name the person who is responsible for the Disney Channel theme song, would that person be okay with it? Would that person want the most commercially successful thing that they've done to be the marker of their legacy, to be the thing they are known for, and not the entirety of their body of work? Kevin clearly struggles with the idea of identifying himself as a YouTuber, maybe even using the phrase just a YouTuber, because it does a disservice to what he actually is, what he is capable of, who he continues to want to be. The term content creator carries a lot of stigma, a lot of connotation, but it provides a lot of context as well in the role that title, that name does. It indicates you do things online, you publish it online, you do it for the views maybe. It begins to paint a certain picture that I don't believe every content creator on YouTube, for example, wants to fit into that picture. I don't think that at all. Now, I'm not making an argument that there's anything wrong with calling yourself a content creator, but I believe there are many people who are using that label or using that title in an ineffective or inefficient way, in a way that leaves them dissatisfied with their lot, feeling maybe like this is just the cheap imitation of what they truly want to aspire to. So not every creator on YouTube is a content creator. Some of them are filmmakers like Kevin. Some of them, of course, have professions outside of it. You have doctors on there. You have mental health counselors. You have fitness instructors and the like. But why do we only call them content creators or YouTube creators? And so as I began thinking about, the implications of what it may mean to someone who is an artist in some way to call themselves a content creator, and that not be a title of empowerment or confidence, I then began to wonder, does that stem from what we think of as content? And really, it leads me to my question today for you, for us, anyone partaking in this. What the fuck is content? So I thought, okay. All right. Hi. So naturally, I thought I would ask you guys first to see how everyone else defines content or content creator. But then I remembered I don't really have that large of an audience right now. So I really only got 3 responses when I posted this on Instagram, LinkedIn, yes, and Twitter. Oh my God. So the first response that I got, one of the first responses that I got, blah, blah, blah. And my original post was saying like content is a loaded word now and it's vague, but it's also contextually specific. I then put in the caption, how would you define content and why? And so Matt's response was something created for the intended medium. Content doesn't last though. It's temporary. And I really liked that take of it. So we ended up having a little bit of an exchange in the comments. And I said, I like it. I like his perspective. I think it's also about intention to be consumed or watched or read. It's so funny to see like shit that I wrote like a few weeks ago. I go on to say, but I always go back to the definition of content as the information within something or what something is made up of. So the content of an essay or film versus an essay or film being content. And he even says like, so content is within the medium. It's like the meat or substance of the art. And yeah, it was just a nice little exchange about it. But even in the few responses that I got about asking others how they would define content or content creation or being a content creator, the associations with it around the digital space really shows themselves, and I think what Matt was saying is also true, that content is very temporary. It feels very fleeting. And that is a game many content creators, especially the ones doing it to run a business as themselves, as a content creator, producing a product or service, everything feels fleeting because of the attention span, because of whatever shelf life that piece of content. So let's say, for example, a video has. So then, of course, like any good former English major would do, I went to Google and started looking up definitions of content. And actually, one thing I want to talk about real first is the definition of content, because I think this is just an interesting perspective to think about it in terms of content. So to be content is a state of peaceful happiness. You are satisfied, you are pleased, you are fulfilled. But content is defined as things that are held or included in something. So you can think of the contents of a jar. You can also think of the contents of a book, the table of contents, so the chapters or sections within a bound book. Content is also the material or the subject matter dealt within, the content of a speech, a literary work, of a song, that kind of thing. But here's what I found really interesting, and maybe I should have taken the time to go through the Wayback Machine to see when this inclusion was added to the definition. But as I looked at a few different sources, so like Google with Oxford Languages, Merriam-Webster, and dictionary.com, there is an acknowledgement of information being made available by a website or other electronic medium as one of the definitions of content. So there is an acknowledgement of content in terms of information online. But the definition that holds true across different perspectives is content being meaning or substance. That becomes the message. And it almost seems like this is whether we choose it or, and it feels the content or uses of such media are diverse.
The electric light is pure information. It is a medium without a message, as it were, unless it is used to spell out some verbal ad or name. This fact, characteristic of all media, means that the content of any medium is always another medium. The content of writing is speech, just as the written word is the content of print, and print is the content of the telegraph. If it is asked, what is the content of speech? It is necessary to say, it is an actual process of thought, which in itself nonverbal. An abstract painting represents direct manifestation of creative thought processes as they might appear in computer designs.
Marshall McLuhan uses the term medium to describe the way in which we choose to share information. So the medium being the message, the way in which we share information is the message. And that association, when we kind of go over and bring this all back up to present time and look at sharing information through a platform such as YouTube, it seems as if that association of the medium I am publishing something through is primarily the message being sent feels involuntary. And I think that is where the existential question and a little bit of dread comes from, is the involuntary association or shaping of the message being sent simply because of the medium in which it is being sent through. And the message being broadcast is either sent involuntarily or reluctantly because of the associations with what it means to be an individual, not legacy media, not a corporation, not a company, not a celebrity, publishing things online. And maybe if we reflect a little bit on what stigmas and connotations are attached to the message being broadcast, we can kind of unpack our framing around how we react. I don't know what I'm saying here at all.
What we are considering here, however, are the psychic and social consequences of the designs or patterns as they amplify or accelerate existing processes. For the message of any medium or technology is the change of scale or pace or pattern that it introduces into human affairs. The railway did not introduce movement or transportation or wheel or road into human society, but it accelerated and enlarged the scale of previous human functions, creating totally new kinds of cities and new kinds of work and leisure. This happened whether the railway functioned in a tropical or northern environment and is quite independent of the freight or content of the railway medium. The airplane, on the other hand, by accelerating the rate of transportation, tends to dissolve the railway form of city, politics, and association quite independently of what the airplane is used for. Let us return to the electric light. Whether the light is being used for brain surgery or night baseball is a matter of indifference. It could be argued that these activities are in some way the content of the electric light, since they could not exist without the electric light. This fact merely underlines the point that the medium is the message because it is the medium that shapes and controls the scale and form of human association and action. The content or uses of such media are diverse as they are ineffectual in shaping the form of human association. Indeed, it is only too typical that the content of any medium blinds us to the character of the medium.
I have this tendency, which I don't believe to be unique to me, but I abandon a lot of creative projects. I have a million different drafts for essays I have yet to complete. And what started as an episode for a podcast, I just kind of started and was attempting to do for a time. That episode that was never finished, I decided to take a poke around and really look myself in the eye in terms of seeing something through and allowing hopefully a piece of art to be made even with something unfinished. I am currently trapped under my cat right now, so I'm not going anywhere, and I need to finish this video, which I'm excited to have finished. And as I think any of the projects I have done in the past or recently, they're entirely self-serving. And I think the more I've intended to unlearn the stigma, the behaviors that I believe I needed to emulate in order to, exist online or to qualify myself to be in certain spaces, the more I unlearn that, the more fun it is to create and to just use these tools for what they are. I originally set out to ask the question, what is content? And in doing so, I got overwhelmed. I was getting frustrated in trying to make a piece of content about content. And ultimately, this was an exercise in just finishing what I started and allowing it to become something else and to just kind of reconnect with my joy of creation. Like,
I love editing videos. It's so much fun, and this is probably the most ambitious video I've made stylistically, the time I've taken to do it. I do worry that this is incomplete in the sense of wrapping everything up with a pretty bow, but other than that, I feel pretty happy with where we're at right now. I don't know what comes next, but I do know I want to keep having these conversations, so I will see you when I see you.